don't know.
I don't know. Yes,
They are live.
Yeah.
10 seconds, Michael. All right, candidates, you've been given your instructions in the locker room. Remember to protect yourself at all times, obey my command at all times, give us a good, clean fight. Touch gloves if you wish. I've got the wrong cue card here. Okay, good evening. My name is Owen Torgerson. I'm currently serving the village as mayor, and I will be the moderator for this evening's All Candidates Forum, or Meet the Candidates Forum, for the 2024 provincial election, Prince George, Valemount. This event was organized and is sponsored by the Rocky Mountain Goat News, the Valemount Area Chamber of Commerce, Valemount Community Television. And in this beautiful theater is one of 6 or 7 points of presence within the village that actually has access to fiber optic speeds. And so we are live streaming courtesy of Valemount Community Television. The riding boundaries have significantly changed for Prince George Valemount and now includes Area B of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. Currently represented by Director Lee Onslow, and in the crowd tonight we have former Director Stephen Quinn. Hello, sir. You know, I really needed to take a closer look at the riding boundaries. I thought, man, if Vavenby is the new V in Prince George V, I just couldn't take it. But no, it's not. It's in the next riding. And, you know, Valemount McMurphy just doesn't have the same sort of kick to it. So, thankfully, we're still Prince George Valemount. The outgoing MLA for Prince George Valemount, Shirley Bond, just a shout out to her and immense gratitude, who has been our voice in Victoria for an amazing 23 years. Regardless of who wins during the election, you have really large shoes to fill, and I hope you do it with the same grace and honor that she has done to this riding. Thank you for putting your names forward. With us tonight, in alphabetical order, Rosalind Bird, Conservative Party of BC. Gwen Johansson, Green Party of BC. And finally, Clayton Pountney of the BC New Democratic Party. For fairness, starting with 3 minutes for each of the candidates to introduce themselves while they're running, I will ask again in alphabetical order. And to keep us on time, I'd like to thank Dee McEachran and Connie McKenna. I thought my mother was going to be at the lights, but that's good. You don't need to pay heed to her warnings. So please, Ms. Bird, if you could, please introduce yourself while you're running.
Hi, I'm Rosalind Bird, and I just wanted to do a big shout out for Owen, Spencer, and Michael for setting this up for the community so that the candidates have an opportunity to speak and the constituents have an opportunity to hear our views. So I have always had a passion for community service. I joined a service organization as a very young child, which was cadets. Did a lot of volunteer work. That led me to a career in the Canadian Armed Forces, where I served for 23 years. I have been retired for a number of years now, but have continued my community service through a number of nonprofit associations and with local legions. I'm currently a service officer at the Legion in Prince George, and I look forward to continuing my service if I have the honor of being elected. The reason I'm running is I have had a number of concerns the last number of years with what is happening with our province. Our country also. During the last few years, there seems to be an increase in government overreach. Their Charter of Rights and Freedoms are at risk. We've seen that the last few years with some of the decisions that the government has made. And I am lucky enough to be a grandparent now. So I have beautiful little people in my life, and I want them to live in a province that they are proud of. And I want them to be governed by a government that wants to unite people, not divide people, takes responsible governance, transparency, and accountability seriously, and then wants our provinces our province and our communities to grow and thrive.
Thank you, Rosalind. Gwen?
Thank you very much, and I appreciate being able to be in Valemount tonight. And for the to the organizers, I would express my appreciation for sponsoring this, and it's really a wonderful opportunity to get to know the people in the riding. It's huge riding. It goes down as far as Blue River and Avola now, where it didn't before. So it's quite a riding to sort of get around in. My name is Gwen Johansson, and I grew up, was born, raised, and grew up in McBride, and went through high school there. And then I went off to UBC and got a bachelor's degree, and then later on to the University of Oregon and got a master's degree there in policy and management. And I've always been interested in the way the country, the country is organized and how it manages its people and its communities and the efforts that have to go into it. And I am pleased to see the number of people that have come out tonight, because if you don't use it, you lose it, and that applies to democracy. And I'm really pretty concerned about the democratic process that's been going on in the province. One of the reasons that I decided to run is that when I look at what happened with the BC United, whether you were a member of that or whether you were interested in that party or not, that was a party that had democratic meetings in order to select a candidate, and they selected the candidate to go to represent them. And then that was a democratic process. Then in one fell swoop, one person was able to sweep all that away. And so those people who had democratically elected a person that they wanted to see represent them, with no consultation at all, they were gone. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to. And the other reason is that I'm concerned about climate and climate change, and I wanted to be able to talk a little bit about that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gwen. And finally, we have Clay.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you everybody for organizing this. This is great. It's great seeing a lot of community out here. My name is Clay Poutney. I'm running for the BC NDP. I have been up here for about 30 years, kicking around Prince George. I graduated there. I spent a lot of time working in many different industries through my career, which led me to a path of working with my community, working with Clayton Tenay. So with Clayton Tenay, I moved into roles in doing a lot of work for my community by building houses, roads, working with local governments, provincial governments, working with the feds to ensure that our community was what we wanted to build it as. It took me a little bit of time to kind of get into seeing if I wanted to run or not. But I met with the other 80 plus MLAs that are running throughout BC with the BC NDP and realized they're just like me. They're in it for their communities. They're people who run the food banks. They're just good people. And that kind of, set my path in stone to put my name forward. I believe in a lot of those same things. I believe we're on a very good trajectory with what this government's been up to. We can always do more, but it takes a lot of listening and it takes a lot of working with all the communities within the riding and all the people to make sure that we build these things properly. And it's not just about down south and what they're doing down there. We need a big, strong voice for up here, and I believe I could be that person as well.
Thank you very much, Clay. For this next section, candidates will address questions on topics chosen by the sponsors. And the sponsors, again, are the Rocky Mountain Goat News, Valemount Area Chamber of Commerce, Valemount Community Television, I had nothing to do with this. Connectivity. The first topic, and we will go in the order of Gwen, Clayton, and Rosalind, is tourism. In the aftermath of business losses from Jasper wildfires, what will you do to support our local tourism sector, and how will you help small businesses build resilience to future natural disasters and potential highway closures? Starting with Gwen, Clayton, and finally Rosalind.
So the tourism industry has enormous potential in Valemount and the whole Robson Valley and down through into Blue River and Avola. It's only, I think, at the very beginning of being developed. And I would say one thing that I really hope that you're able to, that we are able to protect some of those natural phenomena that we have here. Don't let Disney come in and take over tourism in the Robson Valley, because what we have is a natural wonder. And I think that what we can do is encourage the small businesses as much as we can to develop and keep it local and keep the control local, because the people who live here, they're the ones with the roots here, and they will stay. Whereas the corporate entities that come into communities when whatever the resource is, whether it's forestry or oil and gas or tourism, they will develop it in their way, and then when it's finished, then they're gone. But the people who are going to stay here and live here, so I think we need to develop a policy that encourages people to come and raise their kids here and be part of the community, and that will be the best way in order to develop tourism. And now you've got to have some of the, obviously you've got to have the infrastructure, and you've got to be able to encourage the small businesses to develop. But I think that those things can be, you can do that when you have somebody coming forward and giving you some ideas of what they'd like to do, and then you support them and go from that. You want the inspiration to come from the ground up rather than to come from Victoria or some government down suggesting what you ought to do. It should be locally developed, I think.
Thank you, Gwen. Clayton?
For myself, I believe there should always be obviously local and listening and working with community, because they know and have a good idea what the needs are in these areas. I know tourism is a big booster for these areas. It's something like 7.8% of BC's gross domestic product, GDP, which is amazing. It's astounding, and it can be built on more. There should be more investments. There should be a lot more to do up in these areas to attract people, but attract them in the right way. We need a balanced, working with environment, but also working with people coming in. And I believe we can work with small businesses as well to achieve the goals, to help build these communities to what we want to see. I know the Jasper wildfires have hurt and impacted this area, and I know the BC NDP has put a lot towards wildfire and looking at the natural disasters that come with it, and having funds that hopefully kind of attack these as well. But it's having people on the ground and in these communities to help keep them safe as well.
Thanks very much. Rosalind?
Well, I think tourism is it's an industry here in the Robson Valley that should not be underestimated across the citizens in the valley or the rest of the province. This valley actually throws between $5 and $15 million towards tourism every year. And that doesn't include the $1 billion heliskiing business that they have in Blue River. So it's something that we need to protect, and in order to do that, we need to make sure that we continue to have access to our backcountry. So this valley offers incredible snowmobiling, mountain biking, backcountry horseback riding, hunting, fishing. I mean, we have a tremendous, beautiful valley that we also need to protect. We need to protect it with proper fire management. We need to protect it with proper forest management. And we also need to make sure that we have proper infrastructure and support for those backcountry roads that we all like to access. We also need to support the small businesses in the communities in the valley. People come here from all over the province to see the beauty this valley offers, but they get a unique experience here. You know, the artisans in this valley are amazing. So they like to buy things that they can't find other places in the province. They like to eat food that they can't find in other places in the province. So we need to ensure that those small and medium businesses across the valley are well protected and well supported.
Thank you very much. And sorry, Rosalind, I keep putting a D at the end of that, so
It's okay.
Rosalind.
I'll wait, get you in the parking lot.
Our second topic for the guided questions are regarding healthcare and seniors. It's a two-part question. What strategies would you implement to attract and retain healthcare workers in our region? And what would you do to promote better care for seniors in the Robson Valley and Blue River? We'll start off with Clayton, Rosalind, and Gwen.
Well, healthcare is paramount for everybody. I know the NDP have said they're going to build this 11-story hospital in Prince George, and I believe regions should have main hubs, but we do need satellite hospitals and healthcare as well to help everybody within these areas. And attracting doctors and nurses and to like places like this. I've heard you guys actually have a couple good doctors in town at Valemount here, but we also need succession planning, and we need to plan also for the future for everybody within these townships and villages. As for seniors, I know there are funds being dedicated towards travel right now, and that's a step in the right direction, but there's also supportive beds we need to be, building. There's all these things we need to do to help put dollars back in their pockets so they can afford to do a lot of these things and have a lot of the basic needs and other needs that they need, just living, just having a great life. Everybody deserves that. The seniors have built our province, and they deserve to have a great golden age. There's a lot more, like I said, and it's a lot of listening, and it's a lot of seeing what different areas need, because the areas, like I come from Prince George, the needs there are different than Valemount, Blue River, McBride, Avola, all these places. So it's essentially getting to all these places and talking to the needs of the locals that are there.
Thank you. Rosalind?
Well, healthcare in our province obviously is in a crisis. We have a huge lack of healthcare professionals across the board, not just doctors and nurses, but a lot of mental health workers are needed across our province. We need, podiatrists. We need everything. So we need to find mechanisms and ways to attract and bring those individuals into our province, into the north, and into our smaller communities. We do have a large regional hospital here, but it's in trouble. The staff there are overworked. We are understaffed, and we need to find mechanisms to bring money back to frontline workers. Germany has twice the population of Canada, and we have 10 times the number of healthcare administrators that Germany has. So that money should be pushed forward, and it should be supporting frontline healthcare workers. They need to feel safe. They need to want to come to work. And hospitals in places like McBride, Valemount, whether they're small operations or they're medium-sized operations, they take a lot of pressure off the regional hospitals. So we need to make sure that communities within the Robson Valley and around the province that are in rural areas are also well supported. So we need to find programs and incentives to attract, professionals, doctors, nurses, other healthcare to our small and rural communities. And there's lots of ways to do this. This is a beautiful, beautiful place for people to come and live. So we need to find mechanisms to say, hey, come and sit down, set up roots here. As for seniors, well, they take the brunt of that sometimes because they don't have access to services and they don't have enough housing. There's a fantastic complex being built next door here, which is exciting for this community to have opening, and we need more of those. Like Clayton said, our seniors, they built this province, they built this nation, they deserve respect, they deserve dignity, and they don't deserve to feel lost in a system where they feel forgotten or unseen or unheard. So one of the things that we can do, our party has promised to make 5,000 more housing availabilities across the province, whether it's assisted living or if it's long-term care. But in the meantime, we can do some things to help seniors out right away. We can access and we can reduce fees for home care support. We can bring more services to home care, and we can keep people living in their houses for longer. That takes a huge amount of pressure off the healthcare system. And we can do that by reducing or having incentives through tax breaks for people that do want to care for people at home, by helping them invest and put care aids or mobility aids into their houses, whether it's wheelchair ramps. And we need to put more money in seniors' pockets. So paying for eyeglasses, paying for hearing aids, paying for mobility. So they need to be protected, respected, and they deserve the dignity as they have built our province and our communities.
Thank you. Gwen?
Right. Thank you very much. The Green Party has a comprehensive health care plan that's on their website, and I'm not going to be able to cover it in 3 minutes, so I suggest that you take a look at it. But one of the things, it's based on the work that was done by Jane Philpott, and she was the minister, the federal minister of health for some time. And it's as an analogy, it assumes that it compares our healthcare system to the education system. And we know that if you move into a community with 2 or 3 kids, you don't have to wonder whether those kids are going to be able to go to school. It's just assumed that the school district serves everybody in that school, and they have an obligation to do that. And that is what the healthcare plan called the Dogwood Plan on the Green Party is based on. So you would have a central clinic, you would have a defined geographical area, and those people that are in that clinic would be obliged to provide services to everybody who lived in that clinic. And that way you make sure that everybody has a family doctor, because we know right now that that isn't the case. So that's one of the planks of the Green Party's proposal for healthcare. For seniors, they have a lot of things. They have a rental. The primary objective of for seniors is to allow them to age in place in their own homes if it's possible. And for that, you're going to have to give support, because lots of people want to stay in their own home, but they can't, perhaps for some reason or other, and they need assistance to be able to do that. So that's what I think was one of the big things too. And if it's a renter that is in there, a senior renter, then there will be additional support for rent increases, and they will be controlled. So there is an assumption that they would also be considered to be at home when they're staying in their rental there are some basic travel grants that are involved there, so that people can travel if they have to a larger center. And so the health buses that occur now would be increased. And there's transportation, and the Green Party also has a platform which indicates that there would be free travel for seniors on their way to dentist or medical appointments. And so I suggest that it would be a good idea to go and get all the details from the platform that's on the website.
Thank you, Gwen. Highway safety, upgrades, maintenance. With the growing number of fatalities on highways 5 and 16, how will you advocate for highway upgrades and better highway maintenance on our provincial roadways? This topic will go Gwen, Clayton, Rosalind. Gwen.
So the Highway 5 has been identified as a corridor that needs a lot of assistance and a lot of changes. And so I noticed that the previous 3 MLAs, Shirley Bond at the northernmost, and I believe it was Rod Stone at the southern end, and they worked on this, the Highway 5, and they came up with a plan, and I suggest that that's the place to start to look at it, because they analyzed the Highway 5 issues and the problems, and they came up with a plan. And I believe there's a very specific one, that there were 3 passing lanes, I believe, that were proposed. There is line of sight. They had analyzed where that could be improved. They had looked at passing lanes, and they have considered in considerable detail what needs to be done. And they also made one observation which I think is really important, and that is to tighten up the training and the enforcement of the big long-haul truckers. There's an enormous amount of big traffic on this highway, and I think that there is a shortage of long-haul drivers, and perhaps that's part of the reason why we have so many problems with the accidents and so on, because there's a lot of maybe inexperienced drivers. And so, but you can sort that out to some extent if you increase the training that's available and that they're required to have. And there's another issue, from what I understand, is that coming in across from, you've got people that are maybe drivers that have not, they've run into trouble in some other province, but because there's not enough coordination between the provinces, that they come across the line and they end up driving in BC, although they can't drive in some other province. And so I think those things need to be examined and checked into, and the enforcement. And I noticed that in Blue River, when I was there, they were talking about the last highway patrol person had been not let go, but he's being transferred, and so there would be nobody working out of Blue River on the highway, on highway patrol, and that was something that is also addressed in that plan that was put forward last year, I think, and what has happened to it now, I don't know. But I think that that's the place to start, because somebody did all that work on it, and so it doesn't make any sense to just let all that analysis and all that effort go for nothing. So that would be my conclusion.
Thank you. Clayton.
Safety is paramount on our highways. I know Highway 5 is now a dangerous goods route. I've traveled Highway 5 last time I was, a couple times previous that I was around here, and we passed by a truck in a ditch. We didn't know, it didn't seem like it was carrying anything bad at the time, but that's just what could happen. And I'm hearing from people here that accidents happen all the time on this route, on Highway 5. Highway 16, I know that's a treacherous highway as well, and I am seeing some upgrades, but I know Highway 5, being a dangerous goods route, does need passing lanes. I'm seeing a lot of out-of-province drivers come here as well, and that may be a piece of an issue, is we have different roads here. We are the north up here, and we do have different roads. I would like to see more passing lanes, and as for safety, connectivity. I know the BC NDP by 2027 is connecting all major highways with cell service. Throughout these highways, you notice that you got dropped cell service for about an hour. So if something happens, these are critical moments. These are just some pieces, and obviously advocating and pushing hard to ensure these highways are safe for our people, because we travel everywhere up here. It's not, seeing a community is not 15 minutes away. It's hours. And to ensure that people are traveling safe, and you know, we don't have ruts in the highways, so we're hydroplaning everywhere, and we have the proper passing lanes to pass safely on these big rigs that are coming through, has to happen. So that's how I'd advocate. I see there's a plan. If the plan has been looked at, update it, and get it working, get it out there, make it happen.
Thank you. Rosalind.
So both Highway 5 and 16 actually are interesting highways because they have a tremendous amount of both residential and commercial traffic, which causes big challenges. Highway 5 in particular is it's a huge concern. This summer, in 1 month, the British Columbia Emergency Services reported that there was 51 fatalities on that highway in a single month last summer. The most recent was last week. So it is a stretch of highway that needs to be looked at immediately. Passing lanes are an option, but it is a complicated highway. You have rail, you have river, and you have gas along that highway. So that all needs to be taken into consideration when looking at passing lanes. What can happen immediately, though, is enforcement. There's not enough enforcement on that highway. The single largest reason for fatalities and accidents on that highway is traffic violations, and it's speeding. So if we don't have enough law enforcement to be able to do that, because we have very restricted numbers of RCMP officers available in this area, I think we should pilot a project where we look at having CSVE operators, actual peace officers, be able to enforce traffic violations. So that's one option. We may need to look at photo radar. If people are not going to slow down and they are going to cause fatalities, then there needs to be consequences for that. So that's the other thing we need to look at. Long term, if we can't get enough law enforcement, then maybe we need to look at a new division. Maybe we need to look at a highway patrol service. So there are a number of things that we need to do, but first thing we need to do immediately is we need to slow people down. I agree with Clayton. Connectivity is a huge issue on that highway. And again, one of the reasons we may want to empower our peace officers. There are stretches of that highway where you cannot reach RCMP if there's an accident, if there's a drunk driver, if somebody has hit an animal. And if we empower these organizations to work together, I think we'll have improved safety on our highways.
Thank you. Our final topic selected by the sponsors is around connectivity. What will you do to expand cell phone coverage in remote areas and bring improved internet connectivity and speeds to our region? This round will be Clayton, Rosalind, and Gwen. Clayton.
Connectivity is massive, like we were just speaking about for safety, but this is happening right now. Under the BC NDP, connectivity has been on their radar for a long time. By 2027, every rural community will be connected. It'll be connected with fiber and cell service. From what I'm hearing, they are ahead of schedule, so you may see this before 2027. I see Blue River had a project of fiber going there. That was a $2 million project in conjunction with TELUS. I was here last week, and a lot of the channels are scrambled. And I know that must get annoying for people living out here as well. But this is already happening, so connectivity is massive. It's going to help everything, tourism, safety, and it's on the radar. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Rosalind.
I think communities need to be able to connect, and I think it's imperative, and you cannot increase your economic viability without being connected. So families need to be connected to one another, whether they're near or they're far. Businesses need to be connected to neighboring towns and cities. And goods need to be connected to markets, whether it's local markets, whether it is BC markets, or whether it's national or international markets. And without reliable, fast connections, we can't do those things. So they're extremely important. The other thing with remote communities is we need those to improve our education. We need those to improve our healthcare services, because we can't always have something on the ground when we have a remote community. So having reliable, fast, and effective internet is imperative for our communities to thrive and to grow. So it needs to be a priority, particularly in northern communities that are supplementing our economy in a very aggressive and helpful way.
Thank you. And I was just kidding when I said that was the last question for the questions from the sponsor. We would like to dive right into education. Oh, I'm sorry, Gwen. I'm so very sorry, Gwen.
Well, that's okay.
Please give us your views on connectivity.
Well, actually, it would be okay, because I don't know a lot about it, connectivity, but what I do know about it is that if you're going to have, you're losing population from the small towns, and we hear that every small town we go to, because people come, they stay for a short time, and then they move on. But if you are connected, if you have a good internet service and it's reliable, you have a lot of people who will come to the community and they'll stay there because they can make a living remotely. And I think that's key to, one of the key reasons. And I had that kind of occasion several years ago to work with TELUS to get high-speed internet. It was into Hudson Hope, actually. And they do listen to the mayor, and they always thought that the mayor had some power. Mayors don't really have a lot of power, but they thought that they did. And so it worked really well, and they have high-speed internet in Hudson Hope now. And I think that, you know, you can do that kind of, if you can work with the company, and if you've got a group of concerned citizens that will work together, you can accomplish a lot by going in as a group and asking for support. And the province, you know, people listen in government when you have a concerted effort coming from a community that is working together, and they're determined, and they do the research, and they go and they present not only what the problem is, but what the solution is. And that's what I think that would be best here.
Thank you. And kudos to the other two candidates for allowing participation amongst the other one. Our final topic by the sponsors is on education. How will you advocate for more funding for schools in our area, and what will you do to help bridge the divide between the financial support for rural and urban schools? This round we will have Rosalind, Gwen, and finally Clayton. Rosalind?
Well, I think this is a huge challenge, particularly up here in the north. You know, we were able to educate our children during COVID, and we can continue to educate our children after COVID. So I think when it comes to education, it's about finding creative and new solutions. So for smaller communities that your actual student base is sometimes dropping, and in a lot of communities it's dropping, you don't always have the education assistants, the tutors, the teachers, or the instruction that's actually required for young people in northern and rural communities to move on to post-secondary education. So we need to find mechanisms to bring that to our communities. And that means collaborative and, well, as Gwen said it, you need to be stubborn, and you need to have a voice, and you need to really advocate for your communities. And our youth are our future. And if they're not well educated and they're not prepared to take on jobs for sectors where there's lots of people retiring or lots of people leaving for different reasons, our communities aren't going to survive, particularly up here in the north. So our youth are our future, and that squeaky voice, that advocacy, is extremely important.
Thank you. Gwen?
So I spent a lot of time in classrooms. The first place that I taught was in a one-room school in Green Lake. And they had to go out, and at that time you had to have 10 to start a school, and you had to have 8 to keep it going. And there's only 7. So the school board member had to go out and collect, he found a 5-year-old that could come. And she used to fall asleep quite a bit, but anyway, she was there. And so I guess I've always been in small schools, and so you have to attract a certain kind of teacher, somebody who can do all kinds of different topics and all kinds of different subjects. And then it helps if they're committed to small communities and they become part of that community. And you've got an excellent opportunity in the Robson Valley because it's so beautiful. And there's so many, and so if you have to attract the kind of people that like the outdoors, and they like hunting, and they like skiing, and they whatever, and then they'll become part of the community, and they'll make they'll become permanent, and they'll raise their own kids there. And if they're raising their own kids there, they make darn sure that the school is going to operate pretty well. So that's one way I think that to go ahead with that. And the use of, I've worked with correspondence on, occasionally when people, students wanted to have a course that wasn't offered in their school. And it can work, but you do have to have somebody to help that person to get through, because if they come, correspondence is hard. And so if you have somebody that can give a hand with Physics 12 or something like that, if there's only one doing it, then you've got somebody that will help them get through, and then those people will go off and do great things, and so lots of them will come back. And what you want is you want those ones that like what they grew up with, and they will come back to that community. And it's a key to that, I think, to education. And the other thing about it, though, there's education other than just what you get in the school. And you get a lot of self-education, a lot of self-reliance that develops in a small school. And they learn how to organize things because there's nobody else going to do it. So they learn to do it for themselves. And it becomes a really a good life skill for them to have. And you get a lot of leaders. If you start looking at the leaders in a lot of the big corporations, a lot of them have got a background in a small rural school because they learned how to work together, they learned how to lead because they had to, and they learned how to go on and finish off a topic and a project. So yay for rural schools.
Thank you very much. Those were the topics. I'm sorry, Clay. I just had to do it one more time.
Oh, yeah, just one more time. That's okay. The joke that keeps giving.
Please, Clayton.
For education, it's one of our biggest investments. It always has been. These are the people that are going to take care of me when I get older. I've advocated on behalf of SD 57. I believe you have Bob out here. I think Bob's the trustee for out in this area. And we've worked alongside them to hear what's happening and to try to get the supports that we can that's these communities need most. And there's things that ebb and flow, obviously, populations and, different what's happening in these areas. Valemount might grow significantly, may need another school, but regardless, you got to have advocacy and somebody listening to ensure that we're looking to the future and watching what's happening as we're moving towards that. So I see, a lot of graduates that have gone on to UNBC over here, and everybody deserves that path. Everyone deserves that the funding and the schooling and the education all around. It's rural schools are in need, obviously. We need to have teachers in there, we need to have counseling, and we need to have EAs. And I know the NDP has said that we will have counselors funded and we will have EAs in every classroom. They've dedicated towards this, and also having incentives. We need rural incentives to help bring the right type of people where we need them. So the cities and everything down south, that's okay, but it's just a lot different up here. Teaching and just having the different types of people that we need up here, it's a whole other issue that I think we can all solve together.
Thank you very much. Now, that is the end of our sponsor-selected topics. And it is now time for questions from the public. We have heard from the candidates on some of their views and parties' policies on addressing those selected topics, and it's now time for you, the voters, to come to either mic in the aisles. I hope toxicity, rude and lewd comments, as well as personal attacks have been left at the door, and this goes for the candidates as well. I know Michael is quite astute at VCTV with the muting of mics and sound, so let's keep it clean, let's keep it fair. So please, as we are live streaming, come to the topics. Just simply raise your hand, and for candidates, should you wish to address the comments, just raise your hand and we'll select randomly. First question. Mr. Quinn. This might be a long one.
No, it's not. If I may, excuse me for sitting down, but I got no knees yet left.
Try to keep the mic closer, Mr. Quinn.
Hello? Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I would like, this question is for all three of you. One of you is going to win. I would like to your comments on the Parliamentary Budget Office that finances your staff. You've now gone in this riding to 2 health authorities, 2 school boards, 2 regional districts, 2 highways regions, 2 RCMP regions, 2 forestry regions, I don't know about social services, 2 parks regions, and 2 ambulance services. The people that help you run these offices, I don't think there's enough money to staff. So will you go and bash the door of the public parliamentary budget office, I think it is, for sufficient funding so that you can look after that large area?
Let's go Roslyn for our time.
Well, that is a challenge, and actually it's one that I've actually spoken with a number of people. Although I do think there's some advantages to that. I know for myself, the candidate, that it doesn't matter which part of my riding or which other riding borders mine, that the candidates were willing to work together. I'm also willing to work with a candidate from another party. And I think the challenge with working with multiple districts, multiple health authorities, multiple school boards, it's about relationships, it's about communication, and it's about a collaborative process and engaging everybody that is impacted. So I don't, myself, I'm just willing to work with the other elected representatives to make sure that the constituents across this entire riding are well looked after. And it doesn't matter if it's regarding education, highway safety, healthcare, seniors, connectivity. I think the more people you bring to the table, the better solutions you can come up with if you are working in a collaborative process.
Thank you. Gwen?
Thanks for the question. Well, the NDP and the Green Party have put out costed budgets, and so the things that they are preparing to do have got numbers attached to them, what the costs are going to be and where the money is going to come from. And so I think that's the line. You've got so much money, and you do it in municipal government as well. You just say, okay, so here's the project, here's the money that we have, and you don't go over this, because if you go over it, we haven't got it, so that's as far as we're going to go. And so I think that that's the approach you have to take with these things. You have to say, okay, we can do this, and it's going to cost this much, and sorry, but you can't go over that budget. And that worked. We did 3 big projects in Hudson's Hope on that, one of them, and there was a huge the workshop, because the old workshop, when I walked into it one time, and there was a string, or there was a rope that went from one corner, kitty corner, to the other one, and that was to hold the lights up. And we had to do something, and it had been on the books forever, and it just didn't get happening. And so what you do is you say, okay, here it is. We've accumulated this amount of money. We've got it on our budget. We've got that much to spend. And we found a contractor who said, okay, he could do it, and he did it. And so I don't understand some of these great overruns that we keep seeing with these big projects. Those were big projects for us. And every single one of them, the other one, there was a sewage disposal system, and the third one was the biggest solar array in the province of British Columbia at that time for municipalities. They all came in on time and on budget, and none of them brought a debt with them. So I think it's maybe a matter of approach.
Thank you. Clayton?
For myself, are you talking parliamentary budgets for underneath us for being MLAs?
The question was, the people that do the work in your office for constituents, are those the people you hire? Yeah. So, for example, I know Peter Millibar has Andrea and one other person, and I don't know how many northern people have, but are you going to be able to lobby for enough staff to look after the constituents in your office? You can't be everywhere at all times. I obviously flood the question.
And I have I have thought of this as well. I don't know if I have a great answer, but I know that we do need staffing to listen to everybody in all these areas, and costs obviously in rural areas. You got to have these incentives to have these staffing there. Like you want good staff underneath you to listen and to bring what we need to the table we can bring down to Victoria. And I see what you're saying. I'm unsure of what that budget is right now, but I think that really have to be looked at, because what I could see is multiple offices being opened so people have somebody to talk to throughout all these areas.
Maybe we'll get one up the neck of the woods. That was the question I was looking for. I obviously flubbed it. Thank you. The second question I had, and thank you for this, Mayor Torgensen, is in 2032, the RCMP contract with Canada expires. Now is the time to start asking and doing work so that when 2032 comes, it's all done. I would hate to see us in a position like Surrey on the provincial government over the transfer. If you have any comments on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll start with Gwen.
So, first of all, I'm sorry that I didn't quite hear your first question.
I can try and reiterate, Stephen,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Is that the first question?
The first question or the second question, Gwen?
Okay. So we're,
The second question is the
yeah,
current
of our
RCMP,
own-
the current RCMP contract with the Government of Canada expires in 2032. Former Director Quinn suggests that the time is now to start those conversations. How are you going to advocate, learn, and be ready for that 2032 to put us in order with the RCMP contract?
Thank you, Owen. That was clearer than I was.
Okay, so I would think that the best way to do that would be to start gathering the evidence that you're going to use to make the case to the RCMP and also to the federal government, because the federal government that is in charge of RCMP, although it's they have the contract with the local, and there is a criteria population-wise as to who has to pay, and the bigger the community, the more they have to pay. So I would think that each community should be starting now then to gather its evidence so that it'll be able to have a strong case for whatever it's advocating for. If there needs to be more RCMP assigned, or if it's going to be the RCMP, who knows, then whatever the police force is that's going to be taking over, that we know exactly what we need and we've got the evidence to support it. So I would think that what we should be doing now is gathering the information so that we're ready.
Clayton.
2032, that is a ways away. It gives us some time, and it is correct. It's always to be forward thinking and to look at these things. As an MLA with 93 ridings in BC, it's working with everybody else to see what we need for our province. It's about everything. We have different areas everywhere, and it's to make sure that our people are safe and that we have something in place while we transition into that agreement.
Thank you. Rosalind?
Well, I think that's actually a very interesting question, and it's one I've put a lot of thought into for various reasons. So, policing's been a problem in this province for quite some time now. We're having huge difficulty recruiting and retaining our CMP officers currently. And we do have a contract coming up, and we have challenges in our province currently with our justice system and our policing. A lot of policing, their hands are tied currently. So how do we make things better? How do we make our communities safer? And how do we support our police? So one of the things, and this is not a party policy, I will say that very clearly right now, but one of the things I would like to see considered, and with the contract coming up, it's something to look at, is that the RCMP actually retains a national level of policing. So it looks after things like illegal immigration, human trafficking, gangs, drugs, those types of things, and we look at community and or city policing around the province as an option. Often you have communities that the police officers are born and grown and raised within their communities. They want to stay in their communities, they want to protect their communities, they want their communities to be safe. So I think it is something that should be looked at and seriously considered with a contract coming up. I think for the immediate future, which I do know our party does support, is that policing needs to be better supported and better funded, and we need more people out protecting our communities.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Do we have another question from you, the voters?
Back row.
Back row, please come to the mic. Mr. Bielik.
So with the horrific events that happened in Jasper this past summer, you know, the business community really struggled with working with the interprovincial governments to get funding and get barriers broken. I'd like to hear what your plan is or your party's suggestions are to A, mitigate any more fire concerns that we have in the valley, because it is a true concern, but also how you're going to work with the feds and with the interprovincial governments to break down those barriers to get the help that's required in a timely fashion, not sort of after the fact. So I think we have a lot to learn what happened in Jasper, and I want to know how we're going to build on that and continue to build those relationships.
Thank you for your question. This round will go Clayton, Roslyn, Gwen.
Yes, what happened in Jasper and a lot of other areas we've seen up north, things are burning up, and it's devastating to all the communities that are around. From what I've seen previous growing up here, is they've taken away a lot of local people that have boots on the ground. And I know the NDP has put funds towards this prevention, looking at these pieces. I've talked to Dave over in McBride, and we used to have people that were funded year-round, and they are bringing this back for spot fires, things like this. You don't have to call somewhere in Kamloops or call a center and then Vancouver and then wait for a response. You need people with piss cans and Pulaskis to head out there in a truck and put out these spot fires that can grow into raging big fires. That's one piece. Obviously, education is another huge piece. And like I said, the communication, boots on the ground piece, that's for all that. And as for the interprovincial and federal, it's advocating huge to the feds. The province can do so much, and advocating for the federal government, it depends if you're knocking on their door and if they're going to open that door. You do have to really work with them in a good manner to ensure we have the funds flowing in and getting those supports we need in a timely fashion, like you said, and having funds set up there that we can access very quickly so we can get that to our communities that we need.
Thank you, Clay. Roslyn?
That's a good question. It's actually a very important question. For me, it's a two-piece. It's two-part. The first piece is it overlaps platform pieces and policies. So we need to better manage how we respond to emergencies, whether it's fires, floods, landslides. That includes food security. We need to build better food security also into our emergency management. I would agree with Clay that we need to use more local expertise, and we also need to move it outside of just government agencies to protect our communities. So we have some excellent fire, flood, and emergency services around our province. They are completely underutilized. We have assets in our province that have been underutilized for the past few years, and we need to make sure that policies in various resource sectors include those pieces within them. So for forestry, it includes new forestry practices, which include thinning, so that you reduce crown fire, the ability for crown fires to spread as quickly. Thinning also increases water management and the amount of water that's in the forest, which also reduces forest fires. And water management across the province is a big piece also of emergency management. So we need to find ways to store water, to have water available. It's the first thing that disappears, of course, when you have a community that burns, which is one of the challenges they had in Jasper. You know, if you have a house fire and it breaks the line, well, that water's not available for a pump truck. So you need to find a mechanism to get that water to that pump truck. Valemount was incredible, along with McBride, in how they dealt with the Jasper fires. The community, the way this community came together, the way this valley came together to support those individuals from Jasper was phenomenal. And this valley is actually an excellent example of what strong, resilient communities can look like. As for relationships with intergovernmental departments and or levels of government, they're extremely important. And it's something that I'm very passionate about. I know it's something that Shirley was very passionate about. You know, she worked very hard to have those relationships, and it's something that I intend to do also. Collaboration is the key. And we're at a point in our province and our country where we can't afford not to be collaborative at all levels of government and work together, whether it's mayor and councils, whether it's regional districts, whether it's the province, and whether it's the federal government. We all have to be working together for the same goal, and that is to build a strong, vibrant British Columbia.
Thank you. Gwen?
So all of the things that we've heard mentioned so far have dealt with the impacts, and we're always behind the 8 ball. We're always trying to react to an incident like the Jasper incident, the fire, or the storm that's hitting the southern United States right now. We're always a little bit late. We're always dealing with the impact. We're never going back to the root cause, and one of the root causes is that the climate is changing. I mean, climate change is real and it's here, and I'm surprised that there are still people that are sort of trying to maybe deny that its existence. It's here. So one of the first things we need to do is to stop putting as much CO2 equivalent into the atmosphere, because that's what's bringing about the climate changes. So we need to deal with the root cause, and we're also, I went to the first climate change conference in 1990, and that was 30 years ago. And that was pretty well, the evidence I felt at that time was pretty strong, and I thought we'd do something about it. And we did for a little while, and then gradually it petered off, and we haven't done anything remarkable, really, in the last 10, 20 years. We could have prevented a lot of this had we done something, but we didn't. So now we got to deal with both the consequences and trying to slow down the climate changes that we're seeing, and that's not going to be easy. So I think that's where things like the carbon tax comes in, and I know that both the other parties have said that they would eliminate the carbon tax, but I think that the Green Party is on the right track here, because if you look at what the carbon tax does, it has slowed down some of the amount of carbon going into the air. It hasn't been great, but it has been there has been some progress there. But it's the progress that has been made on some of those areas has been overridden by the oil and gas industry and the fossil fuel industry, which has increased the carbon dioxide going into the air in British Columbia. So I think we need to get a handle on the root causes, and we're going to also have to deal with the outcomes that we're of not doing anything 30 years ago. So we're going to need all these emergency services, and there's no question, but it's coming our way. It might be hitting the southeastern U.S. More dramatically now, but it's coming us, and it might be fires and it might be floods here, whereas it's storms and hurricanes elsewhere, but we are going to have to deal with it.
Thank you. Next question. Don't be shy. In the back, in the middle of the room, Joe.
So, as a working person for the last 50-some years, one of the things in our valley here coming up, very obvious to any of our local people, is the sand coming up the lake. First off, that is a huge health concern for an awful lot of people. Very simple fix, put a weir in. Seen one in Churchill, there's many of them all over Canada that stops stuff like that. Number one. The second one brought up real early in this discussion was tourism. Well, you can't have tourism unless you have employees. And right now, especially in our little valley and probably across the province of British Columbia, our wages for tourism people, and I'm not a tourism person, so it takes 3 or 4 people, if they work in the tourism, to even support themselves as a group in a house. They will never be able to, even a family of 2 working people in the tourism cannot afford to buy a house. In our community of, let's say, we'll say the average price is between 300 and 400,000. Where are they going to get the employees for the tourism to develop if you don't have the wages or bring the cost down so those people can have a home? If you don't have a home, you have nothing. Thank you.
So discussing aware, housing, staffing, that's quite the gambit. Let's start with Clayton, Rosalind, and then, Rosalind, Gwen, and Clayton. Rosalind.
So protection of watersheds and water in general is extremely important across this province for a lot of reasons. Without water, we don't have food. Without water, we can't put out fires. Without water, we as humans cannot survive. So protecting water in general is extremely important. To be quite honest, I was not aware of that issue here, so I would like to learn more about it. But I know that it is a priority for our party, and John has actually specifically stated that in our platform, that he would like to have a study done across our province to find out where our water comes from, what our water levels are, and how they fluctuate on a regular basis. And it's something that he's built into a number of our policies in regards to resource extraction and resource protection, in regards to the biodiversity and why we need to protect those things. The second 12-part question that you asked, that one's important too. One of the things that we have stated in our platform is that tips that people working within the service industry will be getting are not going to go towards their taxable income if we make government in the fall. But we need to reduce the cost of living across the province, not just for service industry workers. So we need to reduce our tax base. We need to get rid of the carbon tax because it affects every single thing that we spend money on. It doesn't matter if it's the gas at the pump, if it's the steak that we buy at the grocery store, or if it's what we pay, you know, we pay it on everything. So we need to get that under control. We need to build more affordable housings. You know, we need to attract people to communities like this. And so we need to find ways to make our communities livable, attractive, and we need to do that together. The Robson Valley is a very unique place in who it brings to this valley, and I would agree with Gwen actually. If you bring people here and people enjoy things here, then they can be very creative in the solutions that they find. And protecting tourism and protecting small business and making this valley economically viable and having good paying jobs is what people are going to stay here for. So it is something I'm committed to working towards.
Thank you. Gwen.
Thank you. On the weir, I think that's a really good idea. And that you run into this problem every time you have a hydroelectric project, because you get the fill it up in the freshet after the winter, and then you draw it down, and so you end up with these huge flats, and you get the dust storms, and they are extremely dangerous, and they affect health incredibly. And I know that behind Williston, or behind the Bennett Dam in the Williston Reservoir, there's a huge, huge problem that has caused enormous health issues among the native people, the indigenous people up in the Seke. And there hasn't been an easy solution to it, but I think that your idea about the weir, because then you keep it wet all the time and you wouldn't get the dust storms, hopefully. I have pictures of the dust storms that were taken above the storm, and you can't see the ground. It's just straight dust that's blowing. So yes, it's dangerous, and I like your idea about the weir, and I'm not sure if they have looked into that, but I would like to pass that on to them and see what I can see what their problem's going to be. Then they haven't got that water to put through to create the electricity, and
We'll just allow the candidates to respond.
so that was good. As far as the affordability, yeah, I mean, we've got a growing gap between the very rich and the very poor, and it's growing every year. And so there has to be some sort of a government, I think, there has to be some way that they could manage to see that the wealth is distributed more widely, because that's where the basis of it is, that the owners and I mean, we set up a system where the corporations, that their aim is maximize the value to the shareholder, and that doesn't take into consideration what the livability is for the people that are working for them. And so if you remove that maximum value to the shareholders and perhaps change the equation to maximum value to the citizens somehow, maybe you would change that, because we need to get a handle on, there's some extremely rich people in this world that really don't deserve to be that rich. I mean, how much money do you need, right? So that would be my solution for that, and it's not easy, because you've got to go, you've got to go up against very powerful opponents.
Thank you. Next question.
No?
Oh, would you like to answer, Clay?
Right here, Owen. Third time. No, I'm kidding.
I've already crossed you off the list. Go ahead, please.
Okay. As for the weir, I was unaware of that, but I do know if that's some type of silica sand, that's extremely dangerous to everybody involved, and that's got to be looked at as a major health concern. As for the cost of living and housing, I know the BC NDP is taking things into a good plan to build 300,000 more homes, but also coming out with another plan so you can put 60% down instead of the 100%, or you could borrow up that 60% instead of the 100% in a new home, and that will help first-time home buyers. And there are other incentives there. As for the wages in tourism, that's a whole other piece, and that should be looked at. There are actually a lot of professionals out there that do go to school and come out of school with a degree that are making $20 an hour. Early childhood educators, like you said, people in tourism that are actually really promoting the area, and we have to look after these people as well to ensure that they stay, and we get a good high-quality person in there that will actually advocate very hard and bring a lot of people here as well.
Thanks very much. I think that's all three. One, two, three. Yeah. Mr. Pearson.
I think you have them all. All right, and thanks for the opportunity. I have several up here. I'm only going to ask one with a follow-up because it'll lead into putting on another hat. So the first one, healthcare. We live in a slightly isolated area.
Say it.
We're in the middle of everywhere,
Thank you.
but we're a long ways away from everything. When it comes to any higher level of care, we are 3 hours to Prince George, 3.5 hours to Kamloops. Used to be 2 hours to Hinton, but they've taken that option away from us. A study was done by some doctors, rural doctors, northern BC, and I can't remember which year it was, I think 21 or 22. There was approximately 58 million kilometers of healthcare travel in northern BC. And biggest users of that are seniors. So I'd be curious, before I slide this into a highway safety question with my other hat on, what are your thoughts on solutions to providing better healthcare in our communities, whether it's mobile. We see announcements every day of, new hospitals, new additions to hospitals. Kitimat just got a new CAT scan. They're 40 minutes from Terrace. We're 3 hours away from a CAT scan. So I'd welcome an answer, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you. This round will go Roslyn, Clayton, and Gwen. Roslyn.
So healthcare in rural communities is always going to be challenging. The government a number of years ago decided that they wanted to centralize things and they wanted to have regional hospitals. They wanted to get rid of more rural type of services, and we're feeling the impacts of that now. So one of the solutions that should be considered is that we have not just traveling nurses, which we currently have a number of in the province, but maybe we need to look at having traveling specialists, so that instead of seniors going to the specialist comes to the senior.
Yep.
Now that's a challenging thing to negotiate. Doctors are frustrated currently, and we have a shortage of them, but it is something that we should be considering moving forward, particularly for communities, like the ones here in the Valley.
Okay.
Thank you. Clayton.
Myself, yeah, that is a very tough question. We need to bring in more specialists and train more specialists. We need succession planning. We're seeing a lot of things happen, and we're cleaning it up from before. So we do need to have more specialists, but like I said, very open to ideas like that, thinking outside the box, talking to people on the ground. This is where the ideas come from. Yeah, I could see a mobile, ultrasound or something going from Prince George to Kamloops and vice versa. There is a route there, but once again, moving into your next question, which I know you're going to ask about highway safety, but yes.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gwen.
On the Green Party, one of the planks in the platform for healthcare is transportation, free transportation to move seniors especially and into regular travel via bus. And that's one of the ways that maybe can help. And then there's also some provision in there for funding for that kind of for travel, for the seniors especially. And so I think that that's one way you can start to approach it. There is, right now, there's travel from specialists coming up to fairly large centers, central, like to Prince George or to Fort St. John, for instance, to do things like eye surgery, cataract surgery, those kinds of things. So and I think that's important to be able to have those people coming to the larger of the small centers, I guess, and so that people can get access to them. It's very expensive to come down to Prince George for a lot of people, although this is the center. So it would be improved if we could get the two-way communication going when it makes sense. But they do that now. It's just that sometimes it doesn't make sense, I guess, or the people, the experts aren't available, the professionals. But the transportation would be a major thing.
Thank you.
And a quick response to that would be, what we're trying to do is eliminate the transportation so that we aren't on the highway. A conversation earlier about Highway 5, as former Director Quinn commented, the last fatality was yesterday. It's not when they're going to happen, it's what day. So it's eliminating that transportation. And to Clay's point, I've been advocating for rural mobile clinics. We have a mammogram truck. It's in McBride tomorrow. Anybody needs it, it's in McBride tomorrow. Or Friday, sorry. So yeah, mobile ultrasound. I have to go to Prince George for an ECG. Bring it to me. We'll book it up for a week, move it on to Blue River, move it on to McBride. So what we're trying to do is eliminate the transportation, and to your platform, Gwen, eliminate those greenhouse gases that are being generated by 58 million kilometers of travel. And if I may, a follow-up question.
I think I recognize President Pearson from the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association.
You may, if I was to put on another hat, yes. So now, transportation, Highway 5, Highway 16. Highway
In the form of a question, please.
Highway 5 has become known as the highway of death. We need major improvements. It is the designated oversized route for transportation heading north into the oil fields. Speed isn't necessarily the big killer. It's impatience. People get stuck behind a truck. No passing lanes. We need extended passing lanes. The mayor's mentioned it several times. I'm going to talk about it too, connectivity. We have an industrial project went through here with fiber, every inch of it. We'd love to access to it. But we need highway safety. Enforcement will do so much. Enhanced driver training. We see it all the time. You know, a driver gets into town here, gets onto our access road, can't back a truck up. So I'd be curious on highway safety and licensing and driver training.
Thank you. This round will go Clayton, Gwen, Rosalind. Rosalind. And I won't forget Rosalind as the third one, I promise. So Clay, please.
Yes, that's a terrible name to have for your highway. We do have the highway tiers as well, and we don't like having these names. These names shouldn't exist. Safety is always, like I said, paramount, and especially being an oversized route, a dangerous goods route, that should be first and foremost. That should be first on the slate for the province. I see them doing a lot of upgrades down south and pouring billions of dollars down south, but then we're having fatalities left and right up here. I'd advocate huge to get those passing lanes. A lot of that work has been done. Like I said, locally, you guys know, and it's making sure that happens. As like I said, for the connectivity, that's in the process. It's up to Blue River now. It's coming. It's going to be here in the next year or two. Funds are there. That's just happening. So I'm glad we can get that happening, and we don't have to start from scratch. This is something that's just in the process, and I'm very happy to have that there.
Thank you very much. Gwen.
So the question is, how do we do it, or is it when we're doing it, or?
What would you advocate as a government towards highway safety, particularly for us for Highway 5 and Highway 16?
Right. Well, as I said, I think that the groundwork has been done on that with that report that was prepared by the previous MLAs. So I think that's where we start. And I think there were 3 passing lanes that were proposed to go in with that. There was line of sight work done to improve the line of sight so that there would be fewer people attempting to pass at the wrong time. There were a lot of signage improvements, like things like when you're maybe getting impatient, there would be able to look at a sign that says next passing lane X number of kilometers, that sort of thing. So improved signage, and a lot of those little things that could improve it. But the whole thing, the crux of it is the driver training, I think. And I think that the anecdotal evidence, anyway, is that there's a lot of people driving those trucks that, you know, maybe don't have that very much experience. And from what I understand, there's a problem with getting drivers. And so they don't have anybody else to go with, so they'll go with somebody who doesn't have very much experience. But enforcement is another a major issue. And as I said, in Blue River, they were telling me that they were the last traffic control person was being pulled out of his site and he was leaving, posted elsewhere. So, yes. So, but the key is for everybody to get together and go down to Victoria and make the case, I think.
We do every year.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the response. Final response on this question to Rosalind.
So I don't disagree with everything that you just stated.
It's okay, the grandpa in me is listening to the child first. So.
No, it's all good. She's not happy about highway safety either, clearly. So I don't disagree with anything that you just said, and I think advocacy is extremely important, but I think it needs to be done properly. It needs to be prioritized. So yes, we do need more passing lanes, but the key to it, for me, the key is accountability. It's accountability. So it's regulating an industry where you have drivers that are coming in that aren't experienced. It's regulating drivers that are willfully not following speed limits. It is collaborating with various organizations to make sure that they are working together. It is finding creative solutions. And trust me, if you saw my social media, I am not a tech wizard. I can barely answer my cell phone on a good day, to be quite honest, with these new fandangly, pieces of technology we have. So I mean, I don't know if this is a solution. I have no idea. I mean, I know Starlink is a major thing that has taken off recently. I don't know if you can mount a Starlink, along the highway as a temporary solution. I don't know what that looks like. I think those are things that we need to talk about. I think that there are things that we can do immediately to try and resolve the safety issue. Maybe we need to put up fines. Maybe we need to impound cars. Maybe we need to lower speed limits. I agree with Clay. These are conversations that we need to have. And as communities, not just within the Robson Valley, but across the north, and maybe we even need to include Alberta in those conversations. We have a lot of drivers that come back and forth between the provinces here. And there is some question as to how those rules, regulations, and those tickets get paid or don't get paid. So maybe that's something that we need to look at also, because it's not just our drivers, not just BC residents that are being killed on those highways.
Nope.
So it's extremely important, and it's something that should be addressed sooner than later. Because the last thing a community needs is to lose an individual, but to lose a family is devastating.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, please. Ms. Ramirez.
I just want to ask a question in regards to, so I'm definitely all about climate change. I agree, I recycle, I compost, I do my part to walk when I can. This time of year, we're getting cold and we're getting into wood burning season, especially here. It's a very popular choice of heating. What can you do about air quality? Because it can get awful here, and some of us, it's a health matter, and it really sucks. And then with that, I've looked into rebates for doing solar panels and things, and even those with good incomes, you're paying $17,000 up front, your kickback is $5,000. Lots of us can't afford that to get solar panels to even help or to change what we're doing. We don't have access to lots of different heating options. So where do we go? What do we do? How do we make that happen to be cleaner and greener and friendlier to the earth and everyone else?
Great. This round we'll start with Rosalind, Clayton, and end with Gwen. So, Rosalind.
So it's an excellent question. It's an excellent concern. And I don't disagree that we do have challenges with our climate, particularly up here because we have a very cold climate. I'm very well aware of the challenges with trying to electrify a province and it being affordable. And these are things that we take quite seriously. If I'm not mistaken, your mayor had a rather large challenge this past winter with his heat pump. So it is not operative for the climate and or for air quality to be burning wood. However, in this climate, in order to put in a heat pump, you have to have a secondary heat source. So electrification of a province is somewhat unrealistic when you have to have 2 heat sources and an individual or a family can barely afford to install one. So these are things that we need to look at. We do need to make sure that there's grants available, and we need to look at like different types of energy that we could be using across this province so that we do fix these solutions. So I know geothermal has been discussed up here in the past. It's been ignored, but maybe it needs to be looked at. Our party would like to open the discussion about nuclear. We're not saying we should make our province nuclear, but we are saying that maybe we need to have a conversation about it. We need to balance different types of energy across the province as to where they make sense and where we get our best savings. And yes, where we save our air, our land, and our water. It's all important.
Thank you. Clayton.
That is a very good question. I know in Prince George they did ban wood stoves within the city, and that upset a lot of people as well because that is a free source of heat. But it does bring in the air quality issue. Like I said, it's working with you guys here and working with professionals to take a look at this as a whole, because I know we need different types of infrastructure. Like if you're looking at electrification, we need infrastructure, costly. If you're looking at heat pumps, don't work, gets too cold. And you have to look at the climate and the area. So I'm not a professional here, but I would like to listen more and bring that back. We need to have a solution to this, and I don't have one off the top of my head, but I know there's people out there that will.
Thank you. Gwen.
Right, and you have you make a good point. I mean, solar, for instance, is a good source, and as long as you have the money to put up front, because it's not cheap. And then you have to have a storage system to go with it if you're going to depend on it completely. And so the battery industry maybe is moving in the right direction, but I don't think they're there yet. So it's coming. As far as wood heat, I used wood heat for many, many years, and as long as it makes a lot of difference what kind of wood you're burning and whether it's dry or not, right? And so I don't know whether you can put in some sort of a system that insists on if people are going to use wood heat, then they have to have dry wood and have it cured well. That can make a difference. I don't know whether it's possible to regulate that. And so I think that one of the things that governments can do is they can give incentives to put in, say, solar or put in heat pumps. And I think that the heat pumps, as I understand it, I don't have a lot of understanding of them perhaps, but my understanding is that they are getting better at dealing with the heat pumps are getting better at dealing with the cold, I guess was what I'm trying to say. There's the other one, that transfer of heat, and I know that it's worked well in some of the northern climates when they go down and have water circulating through, and I think they just call it heat exchange, and where they have that, but again, that's going to be a cost unless you happen to have a front end loader or something you can dig a trench with. So I think it's a matter of finding what will fit in your individual situation, and maybe it's worthwhile going to your representative and seeing what you can manage to get as a way of a grant or some sort of for a while there, when we put in the major, we manufactured half a megawatt of solar, and that was paid for 100% grant to municipality. And I'm not sure what they're doing now with individuals, but I'd look into finding out what their grants are for some of those newer heat sources.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up, Mrs.?
No, but I have a second question. So my other question is to do with highways as well. And northern highways, I think a lot of issues also deal with visibility, and I think of snowy weather and nights. And is there a way to get more light on our highways and in town for that matter?
Lighting up the highways. Let's go with Gwen, Roslyn, and Clayton.
Well, lighting the highways between here and Vancouver through the Highway 5.
And to Prince George.
And Prince George
Hey,
too.
don't forget about Prince George.
That's where medical is.
Right. Well, you could, I think maybe you gotta hope for moonlit nights. But I'm not sure that you can, the lighting on cars now is so phenomenal that I think that they've had to rule out or make illegal some of those really, really bright ones because they're a hazard to the oncoming traffic. But I'm not sure that I've got an answer for that one.
Okay, Roslyn.
I would love to have our highways better lit. Not only for the drive from Prince George to McBride, which but actually summer or winter, once it's dark, and with the large wildlife that we have, and me being new to the north, that's a new one for me to deal with personally. It's an excellent idea. I don't know how realistic it is, particularly with our current challenges with electrifying everything else across the province and having the capacity to do that. Although, to side with the Green Party just for a minute, maybe it would be an interesting experiment to see if you can run solar lights on a highway. I don't know. I do think that one of the things that we could do better for visibility, though, is we need our maintenance on our highways to be a little bit better. I would say instead of lights, maybe we should be looking at some ideas for reflective markers on the sides and on the actual lines. I actually joked with my husband when I moved up north, and I said, do they not paint lines on the road up here? So, and I understand where those challenges come from because of snow removal and because of tarring and because of all kinds of things, but that may be something that may be more realistic in regards to our highway safety as we look at reflective options instead of actual electrification and full lighting, because the cost of that would be exuberant, yes. So, but it's a very good point and something that we should be looking at and considering in regards to our entire highway portfolio.
Thank you. Clay.
Yeah, kind of echoing the whole electrification thing. But I've driven these highways a very long time as well, and I know, when a snowstorm's coming, or it's just challenging the eye fatigue you get from traveling long distances. I think maybe a start would be something like looking at dangerous curves, which I know they've started on McBride, but maybe even on the bridges and things, to look at solar, look at something reflective, look at something so those very dangerous areas coming into a signage, just so you're coming into like even a soft corner. We have to, we kind of got to act a little Alberta here when it comes to winter driving, because it's so dangerous. The roads are just slick ice. YRB's doing the best they can sometimes, but it all depends on the storm. So like I said, it's maybe looking at that. I know in Prince George, I believe, there was an inventor who invented almost like a rubber solar panel. So, you can use this to put on almost everything, but maybe it'd be something to like work with a university and say, hey, let's test this out on the highway. Let's do something like this. Like, let's work with technology and see what will work with us, for us.
Thank you. Next question. In the back, Mr. Fox. I don't know everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not to put out any false hopes, but I would say that since I've been here, Shirley Bond has been our MLA. Before that, Ms. Boone. All of these people ended up with cabinet positions because of the importance of the North. And if either of you three, one of you will be going to Victoria, what what sorts of portfolio would be your preference, and why? I won't say anything about cat eyes because I know that they're very effective on Highway 7 outside of Ottawa at night. Yeah, if you could answer the one question about what portfolio would be important to you or desirable, I would appreciate that. And also in terms of economic development along the Highway 5 corridor, we have a large volume of empty spaces. I know that there would have to be maybe agreements with First Nations, yes, I wouldn't even want to rule out myself, if I was running for office, the possibility of bringing a natural gas line through Highway 5 to further that development. I'd like your thoughts on it, especially if we export maybe a little bit less natural gas to China or to the South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're looking at what your cabinet position will be and your thoughts on natural gas extensions into those areas without. We'll start with Clayton, Gwen, and Rosalind. Clayton.
Thank you. Great question. I haven't really looked at kind of that positioning. Historically, working with industry, so maybe some kind of portfolio. Their education is massive, always been on my radar, always supporting our youth. So maybe something like that, reconciliation, Indigenous relations, being a former chief that runs true and having a background there, working with different First Nations all across northern BC. I think I already know 10 chiefs just offhand, so just kind of getting that piece there. So yeah, not 100% sure. Like I like working in multiple facets of everything. And as for the natural gas along the Valley Corridor, that may be something to look at for sure. There may have been something in the past where they have looked at that. So once again, it's looking at the cost effectiveness effects on the environment and what that looks like. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Gwen.
As far as portfolio, I would be interested in energy, probably, because that's the background that I have. And so I would know something more about that than some of the other things. As far as natural gas is concerned, it's a tricky one, because if we're willing to sell it elsewhere, we should be willing to supply our own people with it. And of course, when they're counting greenhouse gases, they don't count the what you export. That gets counted against the country that burns it. So we can export an enormous amount of natural gas, and it doesn't affect our reaching our goals as far as greenhouse gases are concerned. And but on the other hand, I mean, if we're willing to sell it to somebody else to burn, we ought to be able to burn our own stuff ourselves. And I guess it's the distribution system which is the problem there. But you just had a pipeline go through. So what happened with that? So you've got a...
We can have follow-ups after.
Sorry, okay.
Thank you. Rosalind.
I'm going to answer the easy one first. So I don't have an issue exploring the idea of bringing gas here. One of the things I did talk to Fortis about was actually gas storage. So there's a number of things that I'm curious about in regards to that to make energy more efficient in this area. The first question is the harder one. Shirley Bond was an MLA for 23 years. You know, she had a tremendous amount of experience, so she definitely should have had a portfolio, and she was very good at managing those. I don't actually have any assumptions or presumptions that I would be given a portfolio. I would like to learn how to be the most effective and efficient MLA and represent you as constituents before I'm given a mass portfolio to manage, one I may or may not have the experience with. I do trust my leader, John Rustad, to know where his candidates' strengths are and where they would be best suited within the legislature, and I trust his judgment on that. As far as things that interest me, agriculture is one. We can't live without food. Water management is another. Anything in the resource sector. And then I enjoy relationships and families. And that's a massive portfolio. So it's, you know, that's a lot to think about at this early stage. One thing I would like to say, though, is one of the things I would actually like to change in government if I was elected in the next 4 years is the relationship that constituents have with their MLAs. I know Shirley was very active in this area, but not all MLAs have been like that across the province. There is a current feeling amongst many voters currently. They don't like politicians. They think politicians are in it to gain something, to get rich, you know, to make their friends rich, and they're frustrated and they're angry. And that's something I would like to change, because if we can't change that relationship, we can't change that trust, and we can't rebuild it with our elected officials, we're going to be in trouble in this province and in this country. So that's something I would like to very much work on in the next 4 years. The relationship with my constituents, the relationships MLAs have with each other, within their own party, within, like with other parties, and also the relationship that elected officials have within staff, senior government staff, because I don't think it's healthy currently, and I think it needs to change for the betterment of every BC resident.
Thank you. It's amazing how time flies when the moderator forgets who did what. And so we have 10 minutes now for closing remarks. Candidates will be given 3 minutes each, and we will be going right back to where we started in alphabetical order. I know it doesn't round up to 10, but whatever. So we have Roslyn, Gwen, then Clayton. Please, closing remarks, 3 minutes. Roslyn.
So I think I'll start with reiterating the point I was just making. I'm very excited at the prospect of being an MLA, particularly for the North, and particularly in this province. You know, I drive through this province, whether it's up here, or if it's down south, or if it's on Vancouver Island. You know, I look around and I see a majestic place to live. I see an abundance of resources. I see an abundance of amazing people, talented people, creative people, innovative people. And I do not understand why this province is not absolutely booming and thriving. It actually confuses me. And I am looking forward to working very hard to turn that around, to stimulate our economy, to strengthen our families, to support our families, and to make and build resilient communities, particularly in this riding, but up here in the North. The other thing I look forward to is we've lost our Northern pride. I am new here, and it's something that I hear people talk about that was something from the past. We're no longer proud to be Northerners. We enjoy being here, we enjoy living here, but we've kind of lost our way in regards to what it is that we bring to this incredible province. And it's time we remind the rest of the province how important the North is and what it is that we bring for everybody living here. So that's also something I'm looking forward to. And the culture within politics, the culture within various levels of government, and those relationships, I look forward to continuing to strengthen those. It was something Shirley did, and it was something she was passionate about. Actually, just before she left politics, she had a memorandum of understanding signed with the mayor and councillors in Prince George to build those relationships and strengthen them. And that's something I intend honor.
Thank you. Gwen?
Well, thank you. I think that from the point of view of this area, what I would like to try and promote is that we look after it, because we have so much that is here naturally, and we don't want to let it go. There's some areas that have a lot of resources. I would point to the Northeast, for instance, and in a way it's become a bit of a sacrifice zone, because there's so much wealth out there and then it gets taken away and there's a mess that's left. And so I think that in this particular riding, we have wonderful natural resources, and I really hope that we will look after those resources and make sure that it's here for the long haul. So it doesn't end up just being, you know, we've got that problem with forestry already, that, you know, the forests have given so much, and the natural first growth is in large part gone, at least the parts that is easily accessible. And so, and now they're taking all of that wealth that they got from here and putting it down into the southern states, where they can grow a crop of trees in a plantation. It's not a forest, it's a plantation. And we've let that go. So I think that we have a chance still to keep the rest of what we have here, and if we look after it. And it's really important that, to me, and I think to a lot of the people who have roots in this area, to look after and to husband the whole the values that we have here. So I think that that's what my primary focus is to try and make sure that we preserve what's good about this area and we don't let it be wasted.
Thank you. Clayton?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. It's great to see a lot of community involvement. For myself, moving forward, it's a little scary right now. We did lose Shirley Bond. I've known Shirley Bond for years. Lois Boone has been helping in the background. There's a lot of people that have done so much great work here, and it's listening to the people that have helped build a lot of the pieces we have, but taking that and listening to community and building together. Because quite frankly, this isn't a me thing, it's a we thing. We have to move together in a good direction based on what the needs are here, and it's having that voice. Right now, like I said, with the divisiveness, it's like a two-horse race right now across the province. I've met John Rustad on multiple occasions through my time in politics, and it scares me that he's a leader. Quite frankly, he surrounds himself with odd people sometimes that say bad things that create divisiveness amongst our people, and together we have to work together to ensure that our communities move in a good direction, a positive direction. And I would like to be the guy to help push this forward. I know it's a lot of work. Shirley's shoes are huge to fill. She did build a lot of relationships throughout legislature. She held many portfolios. She worked with communities. She was present. And that's the biggest piece, is being present. And thank you.
Thank you. This has been a great evening for learning. I want to thank the candidates for Prince George, Valemount, Rosalind Bird, Conservative Party of BC, Gwen Johansson, Green Party of British Columbia, and Clayton Poutney for the BC New Democratic Party. But most of all, I want to thank you all in this room for coming out on a cool, wet evening to be engaged. I think engagement is paramount. And so I do want to remind you all that the advanced polls here in Valemount open tomorrow and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Friday. Today's Wednesday. See? time, names. Thursday and Friday, so October 11 and 12. I won't get that wrong. Friday, Saturday. Let's
You're a busy man. We get it. We get it.
11 and 12. And then the general election, I think I have this right, is on October the 19th.
19th, yes.
And here in Valemount, all voting will take place at the Valemount Community Hall. So whether you're looking to advance or general voting, everything will be at the Valemount Community Hall. Again, gratitude to our candidates. Let's all give them a round of applause. And thank you all for coming. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Speaking of highway safety.